of Orlando Pirates Football Club, Dr. Ivan Khoza, who will give us an overview of the partnership between his football club, Orlando Pirates, with Kaizer Chiefs, the MultiChoice Group, and the Department of Health. The chairman of Kaizer Chiefs Football Club, Mr. Kaizer Chiefs, will give us more details about a campaign that is centered around the players from both the soccer teams, and he will give us his overall remarks. We are truly appreciative to have the Department of Health as the main partner in this initiative, and we'll hear from the Honourable Minister of Health, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who will tell us about government's plans in leading and directing the critical resources and supplies to the many brave men and women at the front line of this fight. We also have the Honourable Deputy Minister of Health here with us today, Dr. Joe Phaahla. We have the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, the Honourable Ms. Noqawe Mafu. The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture is a key partner in leading the sports community on the social impact and awareness drive of this initiative. And the Minister will expand on these details later on in the programme. The Surgeon General from the Defence Force, Zola Dabula, is also joining us for the briefing today. Before we start the proceedings, just some virtual housekeeping rules to bear in mind. We will have each of our speakers giving their address, following which an opportunity will be given out for questions to be posed to our panel members. And just a reminder that this is going to be done via the dedicated WhatsApp line Q&A feature that has been communicated to the members of the media. The WhatsApp line will be enabled from the beginning of the speaker's address. And of course, the members of the media can send their questions through as the proceedings go ahead. I'd like to appeal to many of you to keep your questions brief and to the point so that we can take as many questions as possible after the address. Please also include your name, your surname, your media publication, and also which member of our panel your question is directed to when submitting this particular question. A reminder as well that the members of the media are limited or are urged to limit their questions to be relevant as to what is being announced here today, and that questions that are not relevant to this briefing will be taken offline. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick off the program for today. I'd now like to hand over to the MultiChoice Group Chairman, Mr. Imtiaz Patel, who will welcome us all here today and observe protocol. Imtiaz?
Hello, Carol. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the Minister of Health, Mr. Zweli Mkhize, the Honourable Deputy Minister Joe Phaahla, the Honourable Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Ms. Mafu, and the Surgeon General from the Defence Force, Zola Dabula, for joining us today. We also thank our partners, the Chairman of Orlando Pirates, Dr. Ivan Khoza, and the Chairman of Kaizer Chiefs, Mr. Kaizer Chiefs. We thank the members of the media for being part of this very important announcement. The MultiChoice Group is fully behind the extension of the lockdown measures announced by the President in his address last week, having already announced our 80 million rand support for local production companies and freelancers in our value chain, which was made by our Group CEO, Calvo Mawela. Under the able and inspiring leadership of Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the Health Ministry has led from the front in the handling of this pandemic. Given the direction and guidance of the ministers, we would like to start by acknowledging our nurses and doctors, our men in blue, and our Defence Force personnel who have been on the front line, placing themselves at risk in the fight against the virus and saving lives, whilst the rest of us are required to stay at home per government's call to do so. Which brings me to why we are here today. As government embarks on accelerating the nationwide screening and testing campaign, we humbly ask our Ministers of Health to accept a contribution of 100,000 N95 masks, 350,000 surgical masks, of which 75,000 will go to the police and another 75,000 will go to the Defence Force, 100,000 gloves, 10,000 protective overalls, 10,000 wipes, and 100,000 shoe covers. We hope that you will accept this from us, two Ministers of Health. This is our small contribution for frontline workers who are the unsung heroes and heroines, the first and last line of defense in curbing the spread of the virus. We hope that through this contribution, we are letting them know that we care for them and that we support them. We salute them. We are appreciative of their efforts, and we want to ensure the best possible safety for them through this journey to fight the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Today's contribution by the partners present here is but a small one in the self-sacrificing effort by our frontline health and law enforcement workers. We would like to once again thank Dr. Mkhize and Dr. Pashla for agreeing to allow us to partner with the department in aiding those that are at the forefront. We hope that this contribution will aid our brothers and sisters risking their lives in hospitals and clinics and on the streets rolling out mass screening tests, and those that are enforcing bylaws in carrying out their biggest sacrifice yet. I would also like to thank Dr. Khoza and Mr. Mutaung for their support and for partnering on us in this initiative. Their players are heroes in many of our households, and the message from these players is important for reinforcing government's overall message. Finally, to Honorable President Ramaphosa and Dr. Mkhize, and to your cabinet colleagues, we have led this war, you have led this war, through your proactive and decisive leadership. We pray and wish you good health, much strength, and our enduring support. We know that we are in good hands and that our country is in good hands. Thank you very much. Carol, I back to you in Rand.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patel. That's right. Today is indeed about our health workers and our policemen, policewomen, and soldiers. And hopefully this will go a long way in terms of contributing to the fight against the pandemic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite the chairman of Orlando Pirates Football Club, Dr. Ivan Khoza, to address you now.
Madam Program Director, I want to start my remarks by addressing our people at home. To you, the father, mother, daughter, son, grandfather, grandmother, girl child and boy child, uncle and aunt, this virus, the coronavirus, COVID-19 as scientists call it, is real and kills. It would have been easier if we could see the virus with our naked eyes. It would have been helpful if we could smell, taste, or hear when we touch it. The truth is, we cannot use any of our five senses. It is therefore important for us to pay and take our guidance from the government. Luckily for us, our government has led admirably on this issue. From day one, by the first citizen, our President, Cyril Ramaphosa. We as a nation have been privileged to have our nation's #1 doctor, our Health Minister, Dr. Mkhize, making sure on a daily basis that we have all the information we need. The minister has literally slept in a different city, town or village, working hard in his leadership of a collaborative effort for us as a nation to stay ahead of the curve in response of this deadly virus. Thank you, Minister, for your laudable service to the nation at our moment of great need. Mr. Mkhize has told us the only way we're going to win is to work together. Every single one of us has a role to play. Right now, in this difficult lockdown period, we're all playing a role. The government is leading a collaborative effort to enable the reopening of the economy under circumstances where we have early detection mechanism and appropriate responses in place of those that get infected. The important role you at home are playing by staying at home is to ensure we don't all get sick at the same time and overwhelm our already outstretched medical facilities and national health system before a plan is in place. Majority of you follow the beautiful game. You know that attacking without a proper constructed defense has disastrous consequences. By staying at home, we have taken the much-needed defensive position the nation requires at this stage of the game because we are not moving and the virus is not moving. We at Orlando Pirates understand our leadership role in our sector and the economy at large. We have achieved even more when we have worked collaboratively with the other market leader, Kaizer Chiefs. In the field of play, we are determined to beat each other at every encounter. We, however, have a history and culture of collaboration in matters of national importance. We have held a view that any matter of national importance was not none of our business. We have achieved a first in the world when our supporters started traveling together in the same trains, buses, taxis, and private vehicles, use same entrances, even sit next to each other at stadiums before peacefully returning home to our loved ones. This, our supporters do besides the results and the sadness of those that lost, like we, the Buccaneers, lost our last encounter. We recognize that the nationwide Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs supporters live in the same township and suburbs and villages, even the same homes. Our supporters live, work, and socialize together. It is the wisdom of this recognition that has strengthened our hands into collaborations in matters of national importance. Our sector minister and the department has rendered support and strengthened our efforts always, Department of Sport. Thank you, department, for your invaluable support and your attendance today. Collaborations help amplify efforts. The efforts of Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs have significantly been enhanced by our partner MultiChoice, a true corporate citizen that understands that its needs are not at odds with those of the nation. Chairman Imtiaz Patel, I want to thank you. There's a gentleman leading your team that without noise get things done. He deserves special mention, MultiChoice CEO, Mr. Calvo Mawela. Ladies and gentlemen, in this moment of urgent need and extreme anxiety in our nation, the collaborative effort of MultiChoice, Orlando Pirates, and Kaizer Chiefs have identified frontline staff. These are the men and women that have the generous job, risking their lives as they interact with the nation delivering critical services. Men and women of the medical profession, doctors, nurses, laboratory personnel, scientists, researchers, and health workers, and other frontline services, the police, and the defense force, face the same risk as those in the medical facilities under circumstances that are mobile, fluid, and potentially more dangerous. Not only do they risk their lives saving the nation, they return to their families who are, as a result, are also endangered. We identify this group of workers as the most endangered and deserving immediate support. Constant testing and protective clothing is invaluable for this group of workers, the men and women in the front line. Over and above the protective clothing donated today, the MultiChoice Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs partnership will use these channels and resources to amplify the government messaging that is important for the nation going forward. Our collective reach is unrivaled in our country. Right now, the message is stay at home. Whilst we are at home, it is particularly important that communities allow screening and testing to go ahead as the government has asked. Screening and testing are helping us to identify and arrest this deadly virus. I know social distancing is difficult. It defies everything we have been taught as a way of life. It requires us not to get too close and not to touch. Please observe the social distance recommended. Please wash your hands and disinfect surfaces that are shared. And please remember, prevention is better than cure. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khoza, for showing us how with solidarity and leadership we can overcome this difficult period. The next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is the chairman of Kaizer Chiefs Football Club, Mr. Kaizer Daung.
Thank you so much to the program director. In the interest of time, I would like to associate myself with the protocols that have been observed by my colleagues before me. On behalf of Kaizer Chiefs Football Club, we are also equally proud to be associated with this partnership and feel that as government embarks on a massive screening and testing campaign, this announcement and contribution could not come at a better time. As Mr. Patel and Dr. Khoza have already said, today is not about highlighting the size of the contribution. Today is about solidarity and sacrifice. While a lot of contributions have been made, towards the fight against this pandemic ever since the president declared a national state of disaster before escalating it to a national lockdown late last month. It will all be in vain if all South Africans did not play their part. The sacrifices by those tasked with looking after those that have been infected will not yield the desired impact if we all don't adhere to the regulations outlined by our government and stay at home. On that note, I'm pleased to announce that our players from both Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates will embark on a nationwide social media public campaign in a bid to raise awareness and encourage everyone to stay at home and observe strict guidelines of personal hygiene to minimize the risk of getting infected. To ensure that our frontline workers are best served and protected, it calls on every one of us as citizens to ensure we play our part and observe government regulations to stay home. And this campaign will be key to enforce government's call and will be strengthened by the reach of both Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates football following. This will be done through a partnership with MultiChoice. Stay at home to protect yourself and the health of your loved ones and those around you. And I urge you to join Team Stay at Home and help our frontline healthcare workers, law enforcement officers to beat this pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mtaung. The message is loud and clear: stay at home. We will now hear from the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, and that is the Honourable Ms. Nokao Mafu. She'll be saying a few words.
Thank you very much, Carol, and good afternoon. All protocol observed. The world faces a global pandemic that calls on every citizen in every country to show the commitment in making a difference. No effort is too small. COVID-19 calls for collective action, dedication to the cause, to fighting the pandemic, and partnerships to strengthen our efforts. We wish to applaud and are delighted to be part of the initiative by MultiChoice, Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs football clubs in supporting those in the front line of the fight and using our role models, our dedicated athletes, to advocate for behavioral change that will ensure that we flatten the curve and stem the spread of the virus and the war against the invisible enemy. The address by the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, to the nation on the 15th of March, declaring the spreading of the coronavirus a national disaster and the further announcement about the lockdown necessitated the implementation of measures to mitigate the challenges. Amongst the initial measures announced by the President was to limit gatherings to less than 50 people. The necessary measure was a fatal blow to the sectors of sport, arts and culture, since it depends on numbers for it to survive, be it gigs, be it concerts, sporting matches, etc. We made the point at the time, and we are reiterating now, that sporting and creative sectors are going to be the hardest hit by these critical measures. Subsequent to the address by the President to the nation, we convened sectoral meetings and a number of issues were discussed and suggestions made on how to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. You all know by now that the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture had announced on the 25th of March a relief fund of about 150 million, which will look at how we can assist and help these athletes and creatives. The applications closed on the 6th of April, and SASCOC and CIFSA are helping the department to make sure that we deal with the issues of those applications. It is with this massive challenge in mind that the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture then is looking at making sure that this assistance goes to those that are in need, assisting the artists, the athletes, the technical personnel, and the core ecosystem that supports them, to soften the economic impact of this virus pandemic on their livelihood. And therefore, We will be coming back to you to tell you as the process is unfolding. The important thing is that we are all part of this process. And we wish to express our appreciation to the many artists and sports personalities who have come forward and highlighted the seriousness of this pandemic with their strong messages to the public on various social media platforms through the One Message, Many Voices campaign. We also thank all those who have used their voices and platforms to provide access to millions of South Africans to entertain and leisure platforms and health and fitness regimes as they cope with the lockdown. The department further called upon both the public and private broadcasters to lend a hand in the relief program towards the sector by playing more locally produced content to enable artists to earn royalties and to show patriotism towards their country. We urge you South Africans, stay at home, wash your hands. That is the only way you are going to beat this virus. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga, Honourable Deputy Minister. Would now like to invite the Minister of Health, the Honourable Dr. Zweli Mkhize, to make his remarks.
Thank you very much. The Deputy Minister, the Surgeon General, the Chairperson of Orlando Pirates, Dr. Khoza, the Chairperson of Kaizer Chiefs, Mr. Mtawung, the Chairperson of MultiChoice, Mr. Imtiaz Patel, and the CEO of our National Health Laboratory Services, on behalf of government and on behalf of the Department of Health and the entire health sector, we would like to express our very sincere appreciation to the partnership of MultiChoice, Kaizer Chiefs, and Orlando Pirates, as represented by their leaders, for the very generous donation that they've given to the health department, the health sector, particularly as they focused on our staff who are in the forefront in the fight against this infection, the COVID-19 infection. We really do appreciate this because it's a huge gesture of support, of solidarity, and of encouragement. And it is important for us to say this fight against COVID-19 is no longer a fight which the medical and nursing and other health professions alone should be fighting. It's a fight for the entire society, and therefore what is most important is for us to show a degree of unity, of collaboration, of supporting one another in the fight against this COVID-19 pandemic. It is a very important gesture for the chairpersons of the football clubs who are highly supported amongst our community to step up and provide leadership, a leadership that sends a message to our people that this issue is no longer about government, it's no longer about health professionals, it's about every one of us. And we need all leaders to step up and to the fore and be able to give a message that says to our people, we need everyone to take action in the fight against this pandemic. At this point, this pandemic has expanded to involve 2 million people worldwide. When it was first declared as a public health emergency of international concern, at that time, we had just under 10,000 people involved, and there were 5 countries initially affected where an indication was that there was a spread across different countries. And since then, it has spread to close to 200 countries in the world. And it is important for us to note that the continent, the African continent, has lagged behind in this infection. But the infection is a serious enough infection that we must all expect that the challenges that other countries have faced will also be faced by those of us in this continent. It's therefore important for us to be able to follow the guidance and the leadership that's been provided by President Cyril Ramaphosa, the cabinet, and the entire government, as well as all the leaders who have stepped to the fore as well and said, we shall be party to the fight against COVID-19. In this case, it's really been very important to see the various leaders agreeing to support the call from government. When they met with the president and president made a call that we need to stop large gatherings, it was important that the sporting fraternity were amongst those who were the first ones to volunteer to say they will avoid having huge gatherings. These gatherings are the areas where most of the infection tends to happen, where people will walk into the sports field or into the stadium unsuspecting, and they end up spreading the infection to others who also would not be aware that whilst they are enjoying the sport, they are actually mingling with people who are already affected or infected by this COVID-19 virus. This gesture was very, very important because it would have been very difficult had there not been any cooperation to actually stop people from going to cheer the clubs that the teams that they normally favor. We know the frenzy that our people always have when their teams are playing. We know the extent to which all those people out there in the whole country will be gathering in small groups, in big groups, to really cheer at their own teams as they are playing in the stadiums. Now that is a huge sacrifice from our people, not to be out there to cheer their clubs, for their clubs not to be playing. It's a huge sacrifice for which we want to thank the leaders in the sports fraternity for stepping up and assisting. But for the gesture of now coming on top of that and to make a contribution by way of providing the personal protective equipment, which we call the PPE, this to us is a major, major contribution. And therefore we want to, on behalf of the department and myself and the Deputy Minister, the Surgeon General, and the entire health fraternity, we would like to express our sincere appreciation for this kind of generous donation and an act of encouragement and solidarity to all our health workers who are in the forefront. We do want to underline the fact that the health workers are our soldiers in the forefront in the fight against COVID-19. We do want to say as well that we will do everything to protect them from being infected by this infection. We will provide protective gear and will not allow any one member to be forced to work when they are not ready, either not properly trained or not properly protected, to be able to ensure that they can deal with the infection without themselves getting infected. We've had lots of discussions with the unions representing the same members of staff. We've also had a huge amount of discussions with our own management, wherein we've been raising the question that we need to ensure that there's equitable distribution of the protective gear across every district so that no hospital will have enough protective gear when others do not have. It shall be shared, and we've got a whole program of monitoring this. We also want to acknowledge the support we've got from various businesses who are working with us now so that we can open up and have a look at how much protective gear is within South Africa in various companies so that we are able to make sure it is evenly distributed across all of those institutions. We will be working also with the private practitioners to assist them so that they can also make sure that they are protected, because we've noticed that in the past few weeks, the major thrust of the infection has actually been in the private sector. And so from that point of view, we want to say to our people, the message remains very strong. It's a message of our people have to, firstly, to observe the lockdown, stay at home. People need to understand the importance of staying at home. The numbers that we have seen, that we have indicated in the past few days, that there has been a slight change in the numbers of people who are infected, can easily be undermined by the fact that whilst we have stopped international flights and ports of entry, and also we've reduced large mass gatherings and stopped large church services and so on, but when people continue to mingle and not observe staying at home, they can actually inadvertently spread the epidemic even during the lockdown. And that is the issue we raised right at the beginning, that it is not just enough to say we stop everything, no trains, no taxis, no large gatherings, no church meeting, no church services. But if people do not respect the idea of not mingling, you will still find that the infection will spread even during the lockdown, and that's an issue that we'd like to bring across. So when the sports personalities are going to be out there sending a message, I hope that our people are going to heed this very important message that staying at home is part of our armament in the fight against COVID-19. And we really want to thank the leaders here who have made the point very strongly. And on behalf of both the police, the army, as well as the health sector, we want to say thank you for this particular contribution. I can just request to make a few more comments on the side. Firstly, the issue that has been raging in the media. I do want to say that on behalf of ourselves as South Africa, we have full confidence both in the WHO and the Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. We believe that their leadership has been fairly helpful. They have been sensitive. They've also managed this issue of the pandemic in an exemplary way that we believe it has been able to give us guidance at the right time. We have actually been in touch with them on a continuous basis, getting a lot of support and getting a lot of guidance. We've had a number of instances where we created webinars where we're getting experiences from the countries that have managed to deal heavily with the pandemic. So we do believe that their leadership is actually quite good leadership, and we have got confidence in them. The second point, the last point I want to deal with is just to make a brief comment on some of the numbers as we have looked at the latest results in terms of the positive numbers. I must say that the numbers of people who are positive is still increasing, and it's important that we must emphasize on the message of staying at home, because as I've said, the possibility of the infection spreading whilst we're on a lockdown is high if people will not stay at home. It actually can be even be self-defeating to have a whole lockdown, but people actually continue to mingle and in that process spread the infection. Today, the number has gone up to 2,506. And so we are looking at these numbers and continuing to analyze. But if I can just indicate that the numbers still in Gauteng are very high. Gauteng is 930. Western Cape is 657. KwaZulu-Natal is 519. Eastern Cape has also increased, is now at 199. And then the Free State is 97. Limpopo at 25. Northwest at 23. Mpumalanga at 22. Northern Cape at 16. And there are still some which are unallocated. Here, because of the fast rate at which the specimens are being done, some of the doctors have not been able to give us all the information. So we continue to look for this information afterwards. This is how it stands as we speak. I must also make another point here that we normally release these numbers. They are based on the 12 o'clock count from the day before. So what came after that will not include. And on that basis, sometimes you will find that there will be reports in the provinces that might suggest that there might be changes in the numbers. In fact, that's really where the lag is in the way we do the reporting. That's because of the reconciliation that has to go into separating repeat tests and new tests and so on. So that is the one issue. Regrettably, we still also have some unfortunate deaths that we have had to report. In this case, we have actually been looking back on a number of deaths that went unreported in the past few days simply because there's been a need for us to go thoroughly into investigating. And some of the people go in and get admitted, not really being seen as COVID-19 infection, but then as they get treated, then of course they get tests to be done. And sometimes as they pass and then you look at them, you realize that we need to get more information on them. So I will report now 7 deaths that have happened since the 9th, that in different days I will just indicate the dates to which they passed, but most of them are people who have had underlying other diseases. And once we have the report indicating that on top of the infection that they've had, there was also COVID-19 infection. We therefore classify them as COVID-19 deaths. So these would now and again lag behind simply because we need to ensure that the full reports are filled in, as well as all the tests are reconciled, and then we can be confidently able to say that there was COVID-19 in this case. Most of them, in fact, all the deaths other than one have happened in KwaZulu-Natal. The one in Gauteng was a 50-year-old male who passed away on the 13th, who had chronic asthma. The other ones, one is a female, 71-year-old, who had underlying diabetes, hypertension, and renal failure, who passed away on the 10th of April. Another male another male who was 79 years old passed away on the 10th as well. We do not have much of the history. We're still trying to get a lot more information about the particular individual. Has come from a private hospital, and so we're trying to get as much information at that level. A female 86-year-old with hypertension, admitted for that, but then later we confirmed COVID-19. That one passed on the 9th, and the 9th of April. And again from KwaZulu-Natal, 91-year-old male who was diabetic, passed away on the 12th, and then a female who was 73, again in KwaZulu-Natal, 13th of April, with diabetes and hypertension. And another female, 79-year-old, passed on the 13th. Again, we don't have a lot of records on this one, but we did confirm COVID-19 infection on them. So on these, we would also like to convey our condolences to the families and relatives of those who have passed. We also at the same time like to convey our support and appreciation to our members of staff, the health workers who have dedicated their life in serving our people, who have continued to look after all of these people during the times, the difficult times in their lives. And we want to say thank you to them. And we'd like to say to all South Africans, we do need to give a lot of support and appreciation to our health workers for the work that they do. So the work that has been done, the contribution that has been done by the partnership of the Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs, and MultiChoice together is a huge boost in recognizing the role and the determination, dedication, and commitment of our health workers in the fight against COVID-19. We need to work very closely together. We need to work very seriously because it's no longer just about health. It's about a whole lot of other social implications. It's got a huge amount of economic implications. It's got a huge amount of challenges in relation to food security, issues that relate to a whole lot of challenges of unstable social life that we're going to have to go through. But we are going to be going into winter season, and that winter season is going to increase the numbers of people who've got similar symptoms. We'd like our people to keep warm, and we'd like to also encourage people to continue to practice social distancing, to to wash their hands, disinfect their hands, and also use masks, particularly in open areas. We have said that we don't have to work and get the N95 mask, all of us, but we can use cloth masks which are made, and we recommend three plies of cloth so that we can actually have protection. It has been also indicated that if anybody has got infection, maybe unknowingly, in fact, when they exhale, the air with a mask on, their chances of infecting other people is much, much reduced, and therefore it's a matter of taking responsibility that we protect ourselves and we protect each other from this infection. With that, I'd like to say thank you, and I want to once again say we appreciate the gesture of support from the partnership And we want to say on behalf of all of us, we really want to thank you, and we'll encourage others to follow suit and give us the same kind of support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Minister, and thanks to all of our speakers today for shedding some light around this new partnership at such a critical time for our country. Before we continue with the Q&A and, of course, field those questions from the members of the media, we have a message that we would like to share with all of you now.
South Africa. These are our MVPs, our men and women of the match. The brave frontline workers tirelessly fighting the battle against COVID-19. And MultiChoice, Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs are proud to be supporting them from the sidelines. We can't say thank you enough and have donated essential supplies to our doctors, nurses and emergency services. But Mzansi, they need your help too. So stay home and do your part to protect them. Let's stand together, stay safe and stay home.
All right, now it's time for all of our speakers to answer the questions that have been sent through via the dedicated WhatsApp line from the members of the media following this press announcement and press conference. We've got MultiChoice Group Executive of Corporate Affairs, Mr. Joe Hesh, who's joining us now to answer questions directed to MultiChoice, and he'll be doing that on behalf of the group chairman, Mr. Imtiaz Patel. So you've heard from all of our speakers today, and you've submitted your questions via that WhatsApp line. We will be selecting 3 questions per round for our speakers to respond to. And a reminder once again to the members of the media, if you can limit your questions to what has been announced here today, and that if you can try and keep your questions as brief as possible. All right, I do have a few questions that have come in, our first round of 3. This one is from frontsports.com. Hi, Dumisani Koyana, who's sending us this one from the members of the media. It says, great initiative from both sides. My question is, what are the 2 teams doing to ensure that their followers are well informed about the virus, especially in the townships where the majority of the fans come from? Because we see on the news that people are not really caring about their lives, and they're carrying on with their lives as if nothing has happened. We have a question as well from Sihle Mlambo from IOL, and this one directed to MultiChoice. Where has MultiChoice sourced the donations from, and when will they be handed over to the department? How much is this donation worth? Our next question, this one is to the Minister of Health. When will the government procured PPEs arrive, and where have they been sourced from? Thank you so much for those questions. So we'll start off with that first one, of course, that's directed to the 2 teams. Don't know who wants to answer, between Dr. Khoza and Mr. Mtao.
I think we the first one to come with the messaging in echoing what the President and the Head Department of Health have required in terms of the hygiene that must be followed. But if you look at our apps and our social media platforms, there's continuous messaging reminding our supporters on the hygienic issues that they must follow. But what we are thinking we must do now is to make sure that we utilize the branch supporters to make sure that they deal with those pockets which radio can't reach, which TV can't reach, because what is important is word of mouth. Word of mouth is powerful in the environment that is predominantly moving around freely, not taking heed of the call to stay at home. So we think that with the branches network that we have, we're going to utilize that platform to make sure that you convey the message. They become part of the soldiers and ambassadors on this messaging of staying at home and observing the hygiene and making sure that we assist in flattening up the curve.
All right, to our second question, Joe, where's MultiChoice source the donations from, and where will they be handed over to the department? How much is the donation worth?
Thank you, Carol, and I thank you. I think the question came from Sihle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sihle, for the question. In terms of where the donations are right now as we speak, they've actually already been delivered to the National Health Laboratory Services, as you saw earlier in the cutaway during the chairman's speech. In terms of where they have been sourced, they've been sourced from various international sources as everyone tries to rapidly source and get those critical supplies into the country. What is critical to remember about those supplies is that they are approved supplies by the Department of Health to ensure that our men and women are getting the best possible protective equipment for the utilization. In terms of the size of the contribution itself, I think I would refer back to the chairman's notes, which will also be in the press release, where he spoke about the various details of the protective equipment. But more importantly is the message that these two PSL clubs who are legendary in our country are carrying to the whole country. And I think Dr. Khoza has referred to the reach that we have and our combined reach. And that's all I think that's the most important part to say about the size and the scale of the contribution.
Thank you so much. And to the Department of Health, I don't know if the Deputy Minister or the Minister will answer this one. When will government-procured PPEs arrive and where have they been sourced from?
Well, thank you very much, Carol, and to the people who put the questions. The government has been procuring PPEs. Let me firstly just say that while we have to focus directly on the COVID-19, but the PPEs are part and parcel of our daily practice in our health institutions. There are various, besides the COVID-19, we deal with various infectious diseases almost every day. So we've always, in all our institutions, have various stock levels based on the need for each institution. But obviously, because of the pandemic, we have to up our supplies in all our institutions. So we have been procuring and delivering both from a national government, but also from provinces. In this case, we are also very grateful that at the same time that the President declared this as a state of disaster, there was also a special grant provided through the National Treasury, which was shared with all the provinces. A number of these PPEs were procured and distributed, and we're continuing to work with all our partners in the provinces to procure, and also working with the private sector. There's a number of contributions which have been made by various foundations. Just about a week ago, together with the minister and other colleagues, we received a consignment of PPEs from the Motsepe Family Foundation, and there are various other contributions which we've been receiving. Yesterday, we were receiving a consignment from the People's Republic of China, the government itself making a contribution. So this is ongoing. As we speak, this week there will be a number of consignments, and we are building a stock to make sure that at least over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we will be having adequate, and then we can plan for other months to come. In terms of where we source our PPEs from, essentially, historically, most of the manufacturing has been in the People's Republic of China. Some limited stock would also come from countries like India, but also internally. There are a number of companies which also produce some of the PPEs internally. And together with the Department of Trade and Industry, we are on a very focused approach to build more capacity in the country. And members of the public may be aware of a number of companies making announcements in terms of ventilators and other equipment, which increasingly are going to be produced in the country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll go to our last round of questions here. This one, hi, Lungile Majoga from Isolezwe. To the two chairmen, as part of the campaign to encourage the public, have the players from both teams been screened or gone for testing? This question is from Sihle Ndebele from the Sowetan newspaper. Says, to MultiChoice, apart from their strong support base, why is it only Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates who are part of this program? Were the other 14 teams consulted to join forces? And if so, what was their reaction? And finally, this one from Musibodi Whitehead from Kaya FM. Thank you for the gesture. My question is to Dr. Khoza. In his capacity as the chairman of the league, have there been discussions? Oh, okay, so this it's a similar one. Have there been discussions with the other PSL clubs to make similar donations or to use their players and platform to encourage football lovers to obey the regulation of the lockdown? And then let's have this one, because that other one was a continuation. Lihlonolo Ditsejo from UNISA Radio Sports says to the chairman of Kaizer Chiefs Orlando Pirates or to MultiChoice, is this a once-off donation or will there be another in the near future if the pandemic persists? So we'll start off. I think let's ask Mr. Mdown to answer this one. It's part of the campaign to encourage the public. Have the players of both teams been screened or gone for testing?
Well, at this point in time, our medical departments are dealing with that issue. And of course, we are confident that the job they're doing so far is good. So our players will ensure that when they go out there, they are in good shape. But also, let me also go forward to answer the question that you asked about white Chiefs and Pirates. I think it's important for us to recall the history and go back memory lane, because what happens here is that as much as we are fierce rivals on the pitch, in the early 80s we decided that there's more to it than just playing football, because we owe it to the communities. And when we started playing testimonials for the players who played for the team during that time. But then that birthed something that we called a charity spectacular, which was aimed at trying to actually get into their communities and contributing towards our communities. And that spectacular competition went for many years. And it was obviously taken over by one other sponsor. But in addition to that, we've had other initiatives where we actually contributed quite significantly. And one of the issues that I want to highlight about this partnership between the two teams is that during the height of violence, political violence in KZN, we were obviously engaging with the leadership at the time. And we came up with a concept which Dr. Khoza earlier on alluded to, the fact that our supporters are mingling as if they are not rivals. What happened was because of the height of violence that was taking place in KwaZulu-Natal, we, with our sponsor Vodacom, we started something like we call the Vodacom Challenge. And the idea behind the Vodacom Challenge was actually twofold. One was to address the violence at the stadiums themselves, but also the violence in that region. And what we did was we launched the Vodacom Challenge in KZN to try and educate the people, to show them that as much as we are rivals on the field, but we all come from the same communities, and also the issue of the differences in the political arena. Others belong to the IFP, others belong to the ANC, and there was a fierce fight going on and people were dying. So we used football to bring people together on the football arena, forgetting about what's happening during the thing, and also forgetting about the rivalry between the two teams. And we are proud to say today that that actually yielded results, because the violence actually came down and completely wiped off. And it also continued as far as football is concerned, whereby this is the only derby in the world that is known where on the day of the derby, people come from different areas, the families are divided, but they go all travel together, they go to the stadium. And even at the stadium, although there's always that issue, culture of East and West, where supporters have to be separated, the derby does not actually give us any problems, because it actually helps us to make people understand that a game of football is only 90 minutes. But after all, we are all human beings and we are all families and we are all a nation together.
The second question, Madam, is that majority of clubs are family businesses. They are small, medium size, and the tragedy with them is that they are not on a payroll. They're the payroll themselves. But coming to the question on the contribution, because we're in a state of war, it is not a question of how much you can do. Anybody can put what he can afford. And the clubs themselves, they've been contributing quietly according to the size of what they can afford. Bear in mind that they are not on the payroll. They're the payroll themselves. And the payroll is dependent on the games they play. If you don't play games, there's no revenue coming in. So it's a challenge that they're dealing with. But be as it may, because of understanding of the situation, it requires contribution. They are contributing in the manner and size which they can afford.
Thank you so much. Then that final question to Joe, is this a once-off donation or will there be another one in the near future if the pandemic persists?
Thank you, Carol. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Khoza and Chairman Mutabung for their leadership into this partnership. And without their initiative, I think this partnership would not have materialized. I think so, gentlemen, we owe a great gratitude to both of you for your leadership. Insofar as to whether this is a once-off contribution or not, I think you'll recall in Chairman Imtiaz Patel's opening remarks, he noted that earlier we had announced an 80 million rand set aside to enable the video entertainment industry to ensure that creatives, cast and crew continue to receive their salaries during this lockdown period. And that applies to men and women who work on all sports productions, both in terms of broadcasting and in production. So whilst we have made this contribution today, it is preceded by the one before it of the 80 million rands. The one that was made today was directed again by the Department of Health, responding to the needs of personal protection equipment. So we have been guided again by the requirements of the situation that our country finds itself in. And we certainly hope that our country does not have to endure this much longer going forward, because it will certainly take a toll on everybody.
Thank you so much, Joe. Big thanks to the members of the media for all of those questions. That concludes the Q&A session, and that is the official end of the program. I hope that all of you now have a much clearer picture of this, the MultiChoice Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs partnership. We'd like to thank the Honourable Dr. Zweli Mkhize, Honourable Dr. Phahla, Honourable Ms. Notawe Mafu, and of course, Mr. Dabula as well, for availing themselves and of course ensuring that we are all aware of this particular initiative, and also pledging the fact that they are making a difference and playing their part in terms of the safety of healthcare workers and the law enforcement agencies on the forefront of the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imtiaz. That was good. Thank you.